And we back, baby, with another reflection on the daily Vedantic. The reflection I've been thinking about is really related to a reflection I recorded recently about how our perceptions of what freedom is, freedom of effort, freedom of discomfort, freedom of responsibility within 30 seconds of imagination. We can see examples where free of effort, sitting on the couch all day, would not be freedom. Free of discomfort, where you're only in comfort at all times. It's not very useful to your community. And as I've said before, it's worth repeating over and over again that the more discomfort we can handle, the more comfort we are always in. To say that again, the more discomfort that we can handle, the more comfort we're always in. The converse is also true. The more comfort that we chase, the more we attune to comfort only, the more discomfort we find all around us when we're only chasing comfort. Every little agitation becomes even that more palpable. And in that episode where we talked about freedom isn't in these things that we typically think of when we think, wow, it'd be, if I could be financially free, what would that be like? I wouldn't have to do anything. Be chilling on the beach. I think I use the example of chilling on the beach, drinking Mai Tais, and our feet in the sand. And we know, if you've ever had a vacation that lasted more than a week, you realize, actually, yeah, that's not exactly energizing, just to sit on the beach. And if you haven't, or maybe you hit 10 days and it was perfect, imagine 6 weeks where you couldn't do anything but sit on the beach. For many people, certainly the listeners here to a podcast like this, that would not be freedom. It is great to have the choice, to be able to choose that when you need it, because we need those things in intervals. But it is certainly not freedom to abstain from responsibility or to avoid effort or to only seek comfort. The episode, the reflection is on freedom is actually found through detaching from our attachments to results, our attachments to outcomes that bind us. Can't wait to get this because, well, once I get $1 million, then I'll feel amazing. Once I achieve some level of status or fame, I'll feel validated. I'll feel like I belong. If I get that promotion, then I'm finally going to get a pat on the back from my parents. Get that validation I've been seeking from them since a young age. And we become attached to that outcome, not even the outcome of the promotion, perhaps. Not even the, wow, if I could only get a really nice car. If I could be a millionaire. It's not even the attachment to those outcomes, though those are outcomes themselves. It's the attachment to the thing on the other side that we might get, that we oftentimes expect to get. And this philosophy says, renounce our expectations, but not our effort. Related to this, and as I've just thought, it's such a powerful reflection to think about and reflect on over and over again. As I reflected on it since recording that episode, I find myself going back to this phrase that I love, which is, happiness is not caring either way. Psychological freedom and happiness, these are one and the same. Happiness is not caring either way. It's a phrase that my wife and I say quite often of, is this going to work out? Well, happiness is not caring either way. Getting to a place mentally, using the power of our intellect to guide our mind to get to a place where we don't care either way. Okay, that would be nice if that happened, but actually there'd be some, and if you really question what we might be so certain is a good thing, question it. Not take anything for granted, not to sit there taking for granted all of the things that should already make us happy. And sit there, reflect. Use the power of the imagination, use the power of the intellect to guide the mind to say, you know what? It'd be okay if that didn't happen. I remember when in my 20s, when one of my companies it seemed like it was sure to fail. I was like, man, if this fails, I think I'll just move back to South Africa and write. I remember telling my wife that. And I got comfortable with the worst case scenario. George Bernard Shaw has this great point of view that if you can get comfortable with the worst case scenario, then all other cases become more likely. So if you can get comfortable with the worst case scenario of any fork in the road, while you're waiting to get results on something, waiting to hear if you're going to get that thing or that promotion. While you wait, if you can imagine a scenario where you'd be okay even in the worst case scenario, then all other cases become more likely. It frees you up. You become, instead of like a surfer that's just rigid, tight, become loose. Make use of different ripples in this or that direction. Loosens us up. And tied to that, if you can get to a place where you're okay with however it shakes out. And the bigger the life circumstance, the more creative energy, the more reflection, the more work we've got to do beforehand. But for a lot of the little and medium things in life, it doesn't take but a few minutes of reflection. Maybe even journaling, the worst case scenario. Journaling, all right, well, what would that happen if, what would it be like if that happened, that thing that I don't want to happen? And can you get to a place where you're happy either way? Because that is freedom, that is happiness. That loosens us up. And in the vein of George Bernard Shaw, it actually loosens us up to take full advantage of the opportunity at hand, or the 2 or 3 factors that we can control. Happiness is not caring either way. And when we get comfortable with the worst case scenario, if we can get comfortable with the worst case scenario, it frees us up to make every other case more likely. To notice things that maybe the rigid version of ourselves would not have noticed. To choose approaches to see things more clearly than the really tight, constricted version of us, so scared of that worst case scenario, would not see or would not be able to take advantage of. All of these things point back to the eternal principle within Vedanta of attach, you lose, detach, you gain. When we are attached, gripping, white-knuckling, some outcome that we're so convinced we need to happen, we need it to happen for us. When we let go, when we ease up, when we find a way to where we'd be happy either way, where we get comfortable with the worst case scenario, we cultivate that detachment, allows for all of those cases, all of those previously preferred attachments, results. It allows them, gives them space to unfold and actually happen. And what I love about this eternal principle is it doesn't just say it gives these things space to unfold the way that our prior selves might have preferred, but it also explicitly points out that when we do attach to needing things to be a certain way, when we can't get comfortable with worst case scenario, when we white knuckle and grip, so attached to a relationship, to a milestone, to a thing, to validation, to status. This eternal principle is so explicit in that it says that it will elude you because of your attachment. Everybody knows this. The example I always give is if you're ever dating someone and you're so attached to that person in the first few weeks, it's not an attractive quality. They call that, I think in the dating game, they call that one-itis. When you're like, no, that's the one, I need to make it happen. That attachment, that overzealousness, oftentimes pushes that person away. And it's the same with circumstance, and it's the same with achievements, pushing these things and other people away. But happiness, you might think it's in getting that thing. But what's so interesting about this is happiness is being okay with however it unfolds. Happiness now, here, versus out there on the other side of getting that thing. And so fascinatingly, so paradoxically, that happiness that you can tap into right now could be one of the most influential things to making that outcome a reality. Happiness detached from the outcome produces the outcome that the previous you might have sworn was the only outcome that could make you happy. It's happiness before, and it's happiness after. It's happiness through not caring either way. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.